Hello and welcome to the Healing Insight Podcast, episode 52, with me, Sarah Hunt.
And me, Jez Hunt.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Hi, Jay. Wow, episode 52. Can you believe it? A
This is it.
year,
I
a
know.
year since we started. I can't believe it. I was excited about doing the podcast when we decided to first do them, but I had no idea that we'd find it so easy to find so many topics to discuss and um, look at to help listeners with their own healing journey. So I want to put out the balloons and get the party poppers out.
All good. So yes, 52. So next episode will be the start of our second year.
Indeed, it will. It's amazing.
So yeah, the good thing is we haven't run out of steam yet.
No, we haven't. We haven't run out of topics. Today's topic, creating space for ourselves. And I think it's a really important topic, and it follows on really nicely from the last session that we did on frustration, because often, certainly I get frustrated when I'm being pulled in lots of different directions. So I feel like I'm being pulled in lots of different directions, and I'm just wanting a few minutes for myself. And sometimes as well, it's when I've put myself under pressure, or I feel under pressure, and things aren't quite going right, and it's like I need to create some space for myself for a few minutes. And also, I find sometimes, if I'm struggling to intuit something, and working with my intuition is really important in the work that I do, that I need to actually, what do you call it,
Break state.
break state, yeah. So I actually need to break state and do something, and I'll find I'll pop out with Charlie, and I'll walk, just walking around the block with him, and by the time I get home, what I was trying to intuit will have popped in, because I've gone back into my heart properly. I've relaxed. I've just put it out there that I need to know something, and then it will pop in for me. But if I've stayed in that frustrated state, then it just gets worse, because I've pushed myself into my head, instead of staying in my heart and letting the information come to me. Because everything that we need to know comes from within. But if we're pushed into our heads, we're not able to actually pick up on it so easily. So creating space for ourselves, I think you can kind of look at it in different ways. It's partly it's making sure that we do get time for ourselves that allows us to rest and recuperate properly,
Yep.
so that we're fresh and able to do what we're here to do and what we need to do. But also, it's about breaking state and giving ourselves a few minutes during the day to center ourselves again and bring ourselves back into the moment, back into the now, and back into our heart center.
Yes. It's also allowing output. So when we're in our heads, when we talk about being in our heads, we're in our conscious mind. We've got our unconscious mind, which is connected to our intuition, which we have all this stuff going in. So through our five senses, we are taking in 4.2 million bits of information every second going in, which we have to filter and store, and because everything's stored in our brains. So I think we covered that on a previous episode, actually. But so the point is, we've got all this stuff going in. Well, imagine a glass of water and you start filling it from a jug, and then the glass of water gets to the top. Well, you're still filling it. Well, it's just going to overflow. There's no more space for any more water to go in. Now, that's not exactly what's happening with the brain, but the point is we need to allow to get output. We need to allow output. We need to allow space for our brain to output, to make connections. So our subconscious mind is working to help us solve any problems that we're posing to it. We want to achieve this. We want to find the answer for this. The unconscious mind is saying, oh, what's in here? What's in these different spaces in my brain that can help resolve that problem? But if we don't allow it time, or we're consciously trying to solve it rather than allowing the subconscious to actually kick in, then we're not either not allowing the answers to come up, or we're not recognizing the answers when they do come up, which I believe is quite often people have ideas when they first wake up, have answers to something they might have been mulling over when they first wake up, when they're standing in the shower, when they're going for a walk in nature, when you're doing something that doesn't involve inputting. So going for a walk in nature, listening to an audio book, you're still inputting. It's something you're focused on. Just going for a walk in nature and just allowing yourself to be in that moment, you are more likely to get the answer of something that you're looking for.
I think that's where the saying "sleep on it" comes from, as well, isn't it? Where people have tried to make decisions, or get an understanding of what's right for them, and they're kind of going over and over and over it in their heads, and then somebody will say to them, well, just sleep on it, and
Yeah.
then you sleep on something, and rather than try and make a decision, and when you wake up, like you say, what you need to do, what you need to deal with, will become apparent. So it doesn't mean that we need to be sitting in the chair, going to sleep on and off all day, but letting go of whatever it is and waiting until the next morning, often, unless it's a life or death situation, it is okay to leave it, and let the answer come to you, rather than try and force an answer.
Well, it can be elusive. Well, think of the times when someone asks you a question and you go, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, it eludes you because you're chasing after it. Whereas if you say, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, oh, I'm sure it'll come up later, and you let go of it, and then all of a sudden, 10 minutes in, all of a sudden you blurt out the answer of the question from 10 minutes ago. Oh, it's so-and-so, or so, such and such. And it's because you've allowed your brain, you've allowed space for that answer that you knew to come up. It's just because you were focused on it, that kind of can stop you from finding the answer. So
I've had that situation many times,
yeah,
actually, where a student's asked me something and I've gone, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, can't think what the word is. And it's like, let's just park that for a minute. That's
yeah,
the way I tend to deal with it. Let's just park that and we'll carry on our conversation, and it will pop in. And it does usually. 9 times out of 10, it will pop in. Or if it's not me that picks up on it, somebody else will, and will say, was this what you meant? And then it'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it was. So, but it's, you're right. I think, and one of the things that I've noticed recently is just how much we do have to process, and we do need space for our brains to be able to process everything, so because of all the input, to allow the output to come.
yeah. It's also
It's
going back to what you were saying about going out in nature and doing things. So it's also allowing ourselves the space for that, not even necessarily for output, but just so that we're not constantly in this sort of lane of got to get this done, got to get this done, got to get this done. It's allowing us just some time out for our mental well-being, for our well-being. Not
Yeah, it's kind of, we're in a state of bombardment all the time, aren't
yeah,
we? And then if we're putting pressure on ourselves, we're bombarding ourselves even more as well, and 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 just putting more and more pressure on. Whereas actually, sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I'm just stepping back. I'm stepping out of this for a minute, even if it's just to go and stand in the garden. I've done that before now, where I've just gone and stood in the garden. I've even leant against my magnolia tree and just taken a few deep breaths.
yeah,
Said, okay, let's just let's just have a moment and then see what we need to do next. And just doing that can take enough pressure off the situation. And years ago, when I first started doing meditations, if I got bombarded with work and I was under pressure with work and then things were going on with the children and wasn't going right, if I was working at home, sometimes if I was out on the road and I was feeling really stressed out, I would just go and switch off my phone, switch off my computer, go upstairs and go into a meditative state for 10 or 15 minutes and just allow myself the downtime to then be able to deal with whatever I needed to deal with without being in the same sort of state as I'd got myself into because I was feeling frustrated and under pressure.
Yeah. So you created yourself some space.
Mm,
You know, it's it goes back a bit. I think we talked about this with overwhelm a while back. Um, when we've got all this stuff going on that leads to inaction. So we've got, in fact, some we talked about in frustration as well to a degree last time. We've got so much going on that we can't make a decision as to what we need to do, and then we get frustrated and anxious, and because we've got all this stuff going on, but we're not actually making any progress forwards. The best thing we can do when we get overwhelmed, when there is too much going on, is to take a step back, even though it might be counterintuitive, is to take that step back. Well, I haven't got time. I've got to just get on and do this. Well, actually, taking 5 minutes now and going out for a walk or just going and standing in the garden or doing a meditation is actually going to help us get back into the now, back into the zone, back into flow to be able to then achieve something in what or identify what we need to do and or then achieve something with that. Whereas staying in that moment, staying in that state of frustration, and all it does is keep us inactive, and we're better off
mm.
picking something and getting active, getting momentum, getting movement, even if we then decide actually what I'm doing now isn't the thing I should be doing. I should be doing that, or I need to be doing that. Well, just by getting moving and doing something has now given us the space to realize that this isn't what we need to be doing. We need to be doing that because we're focused on the thing we think we should be doing rather than worrying about what we're not doing.
Yeah, I have to say that I always found that if I gave myself 10 or 15 minutes space, I would come back and be much more productive.
Yeah.
And I still find that now. But certainly, back in the days of doing sales jobs, what have you, I always found that if I just switched off from everything and everyone, gave myself that space, and then back to whatever I needed to do, I might end up working later in the evening, but I would be more productive and whatever needed to be done got done.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's very easy in the world that we live in not to have that space and not to realize that we need to create that space because we are so bombarded with everything that we're distracted from what we need, and and we need not to be constantly bombarded 24 hours a day. We need to be able to step out and give ourselves space to process everything, to then be able to make sure that we step back into the now and do what's important now. Um, but society has created a situation where people feel that they have to be busy all the time.
Yeah. And there can be
There's an awful lot of
guilt.
people like that.
There can be guilt
Mm,
connected with that, or fear of judgment. Oh, if I'm sitting down not doing something, if I'm not doing what I said I was doing, or I'm sitting reading a book for 5 minutes, I'm just taking some time out, and your boss walks in and says, "What are you doing? Why aren't you doing whatever it is?" Or whatever it might be. It could just be the fear of that. It could be the pressure we put on ourselves. Oh, I must be lazy because I'm not doing what I've said I was going to do today. That doesn't make you lazy. But the point is, it's this internal dialogue and this stuff that we can put the pressure on ourselves with of, Well, I have to be doing something productive with every minute of my day. Well, sometimes not doing anything is the most productive thing you can do.
Mm. Yeah, because you're allowing yourself time, aren't you, just to process everything.
We can't be working flat out all the time. It's not a good state to be.
We're not meant to be
No.
like that either, are we? We are not meant to be like that. And when we are in that state, then 9 times out of 10 we'll have pushed ourselves out of flow. Um, and so taking that time out to create space again then allows us to step back into the moment and back into flow rather than struggling on
Yeah.
and not really feeling like we're achieving anything.
And breaking the state in, or giving yourself some creating some space for yourself, doesn't have to be going out for a walk for half an hour. It could just be getting up, stretching, going to the kitchen, putting the kettle on, just having a stretch round for a few minutes while the kettle boils, make yourself a drink and go back again.
Mm.
That might be enough. It might be go and stand in the garden and listen to the birds and lean against a tree. It might be actually, no, I'm going to take a walk and I'm going to take an hour out and I'm just going to go and be in nature for an hour. It could be doing some painting or some needlecraft or some crocheting or reading a book or whatever it needs to be for you. Journaling, it could be whatever. It's just
Mm.
taking yourself out of that situation that you're in where you're getting frustrated or overwhelmed or where things aren't flowing, where where there's some resistance or something coming up in terms of being productive or getting done what you need to get done in that moment. Taking a step back and just allowing yourself some space before you then go back to it. Because if you're actually in flow, then 2 hours can go like that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this for 2 hours and it's just gone perfectly. So we don't need to
Yeah.
take a break then because we're in flow and we're in the right space to do it.
But I think when we do need to take space as well and make space for that for ourselves, it's really important not to feel guilty
Yes.
for taking that time out and for allowing ourselves that time. Because then if you feel guilty about it, then you're just putting added pressure onto yourself that doesn't need to be there. So it is important to recognize that sometimes we need to take space and it's okay to create that space for ourselves.
Yeah. It's important that we do. And again, it's proportional, isn't it? So yeah, if you're self-employed and you're spending 7 hours of your day out in nature and reading books and doing anything and everything except working, and then you're doing an hour of work, then that's not necessarily the most productive you can be running a business. But maybe your business model works on that basis. Well, great if it does.
Mm.
But taking an hour out of your day or 2 hours out of your day over the whole day, particularly as most self-employed people don't just work 9 till 5 anyway.
Mm.
We juggle things around. I mean, I take time out during the day, and some nights I do, because I've got clients in America, then I'll do a session in the evening. So I'm working in the evening at 8 o'clock my time to do a coaching session. Then I'll take time out during the day to go and spend a couple of hours walking around and getting nature stuff, or doing something to create space for myself so that I'm in a nice, calm, relaxed space. So we have that advantage being self-employed that we can pick and choose, but it's possibly looking at percentages of time or amount of time that we're taking breaks versus working. But then only in that, if you're stuck, if something isn't going, so if you're trying, so going back to what we were saying in frustration last time, if you're trying to get a particular thing achieved today, and it's not going well and you're not making progress and things seem to be happening and you're not in flow, then firstly, can you get yourself into flow? So taking a break, creating space, allowing yourself that few moments to step back from it and then trying again. Or maybe you're not meant to be doing that thing. Maybe there is something more urgent or more important that you should be doing. And the resistance to achieving that thing you're working on is because subconsciously you know that you should be doing something else, which can then lead to feelings of guilt and and those sorts of things as well. So if I know that I need to be doing something, but I'm avoiding it and I'd rather do this because, well, I'll just get this done, there might be at a subconscious level, I know that I should be doing the other thing.
Mm.
Then it could be that the thing I'm trying to do is not flowing, it's not going well. But that could be because subconsciously I'm saying to myself, you shouldn't be doing this anyway. You should be doing that. So get over and do that.
Mm.
But by
Yeah,
creating
this is
space and taking that step back, quite often that clarity comes up.
it allows you to listen to yourself more easily, doesn't it? When you take that space,
Yeah. Because,
you're able to hear what your subconscious, what your higher self, what your soul is actually saying to you. And if you've got a lot of clutter in your head because because you've got things not going right, you're getting pulled in different directions, you've not created any space for yourself, um, and and for the situation, then you can't actually hear yourself. And we need to be listening to ourselves.
yeah, it's like working with a pair of headphones on, like sound blocking headphones.
Mm,
We get focused on something, we put these headphones on, and that's it. We can't hear what our intuition's telling us. Whereas we need to be working with
yeah.
the headphones off. We need to be, okay, this is what I feel I need to be working on right now. Let's just go with it. Okay. Oh, something's just popped into my mind. Actually, I should be doing that. That's more important. Okay, then let me park this. I'll just get up, have a stretch, just double check. Is that what I need to be doing? Yes, that's what I need to be doing. Right. So I'm going to park that job, that task, and I'm now going to do this one because I've intuited that's because I've heard my voice. I've seen the opportunity, the possibility that that's what I should be doing, rather than being in that blinkered headphone state of, well, this is what I've set I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to just do this until it's done. And going back to what we were saying before, sometimes if there's a time deadline on it, then maybe that is what you have to do, and maybe sometimes you have
Mm.
to force yourself through that. But quite often, just by taking that step back, you don't need to force yourself through anything.
Yeah.
Okay, you're looking a bit puzzled there. So either processing or not sure what I mean.
I think I'm just trying to, yeah, I'm processing, but just
Okay,
put it in a slightly different way.
so let's use an example of writer's block. So quite
Mm.
often, if someone's writing a book, I mean, I'm sure people have heard the term writer's block for an author, where they just can't seem to work out what to say or what to write. Well, to me, I mean, there are things that can happen when you get into that realm of, well, I can't write. So it's kind of that. It's kind of like that sleep. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. Well, you're going to keep yourself awake because you keep going around that loop of I can't sleep. So it's a bit like that, possibly, in my mind. So writer's block. If you're struggling with what to write, then stand up, take a step back, take a break, create some space for yourself, and allow that intuitivity to come out. And maybe it is taking a walk in nature. But another way of doing it, another way of tackling it possibly is just to start writing something. Even if you end up writing pages and pages of gibberish initially, because what that does is release that pressure, it releases that flow or that blockage and allows you to get into flow of writing. Even if, well, I think I've got writer's block, I don't know what to write, I'm just going to write something. So it's a bit like stream of consciousness writing.
Mm.
Just start writing something. It doesn't matter. Look out the window and just start writing what it is you're seeing outside. You at least going to start writing something which allows you to get into the flow of writing, which then, if you're in flow of writing, allows the unconscious mind to say, right, now this is what you need to be writing. So the point is that by allowing ourselves some space or by changing our focus, from the thing that we're struggling with, and keeping momentum at some level allows us, we can always shift direction while we're moving. Whereas it's harder to, if we're not making a decision as to which way we want to move, it's harder to start. Whereas at
mm,
least if we start down one road, oh no, we're going, no, actually, I don't want to be on this one. I want to be on that one. So now I can move over because at least something's moving. And we can do that by
yeah,
giving ourselves space and not getting so focused on, oh, I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done. Which comes back to pressures of timescales and putting things within confines of time, like we were talking about before, last episode, where we put the pressure on ourselves, or someone puts an external pressure on ourselves because this has to be done by this time.
mm,
When actually, does it really? Who says? Why? What are the impact if it doesn't? And sometimes it's more of a perceived impact than an actual impact.
mm. Yeah. Now I have to process
Giving
it.
yourself
Give
space.
myself space, process it. I think it's just really highlighted the importance of allowing ourselves space when we need it to be able to process situations, information, what we need to do next, um, so that we can be our most productive and so that we can be our best selves as well. Because although every moment we are being our best self, um, at that particular moment in time with what is going on at that particular moment in time, when we've got ourselves in a bit of a stew because things aren't quite going right, deep down inside, we know that's not our best self, even though it's our best self in that moment because it's where we're at
Yeah.
in that moment. Yeah. Um. So, so learning to take time out for ourselves is as important as making sure we get everything done that needs to be done for that particular day. And I think you're right. There's so many constraints with time. Time has um, been something that has been drummed into us right from when we were small. You've got to do this within this time limit. You've only got an hour for this exam. I'm giving you 20 minutes to get a short story written in class today, and then we'll read it back. And it just puts pressure on all the way around, doesn't it? Whereas when we kind of step back, give ourselves a bit of time, and look at what feels right for the next moment, whether that is making ourselves a cup of tea, deciding that now is the time to go for that walk that we've been planning to do all day, or whether it's actually, I'm doing the wrong thing now, I need to be doing this, not that, let's get on with this and step back into flow. Um, it's recognizing that it's okay to have that time to allow ourselves to filter everything, to process everything, to move ourselves back into that comfortable space of being in flow.
Yeah. And it's also something that will help us every day anyway. So when something happens, I mean, we talked about responding rather than reacting to things.
Mm,
Well, to respond, we need to take a step back, because if we're going to react, we're going to react in the moment. We're not thinking about it. We're not taking that step back to see the bigger picture, or
mm,
to feel what it is or to intuit what it is we need to do in that moment, which is a response. We're just reacting. So we need to be doing it anyway. So if that email comes in that upsets you, when you read it, you start and it triggers you, the best thing you can do is to step back from it, allow yourself some space, read it, allow yourself some space, and then respond to it, rather than immediately jumping down that reaction road of doing a reply and typing your reply in when your energy is going to be all over the place, be it anger, be it upset, be it whatever it might be, rather than doing it from a place of calm. Okay, what is the person actually saying to me? What is it that they actually are trying to convey? And what do I need to respond to? And what can I just let go of? What's not even relevant for me to respond to? So it's important to have this, create space for ourselves just during the day, even if it is just a phone call or a message or an email or a something. Okay, what's actually going on here? What do I need to do in this moment? So creating space is very important.
It is very important. Yeah. And it kind of, yeah, it just is an important topic after what we were talking about in the last session. But I think it's important for everybody to recognize the importance of taking space, creating space,
Yeah,
allowing space.
yeah,
It's not just about creating the time and thinking, right, I'm going to have that time, but then being strong and allowing that time unless something really urgent happens, and knowing that it's okay to have that time.
yeah,
It's all right to do that, and not to judge yourself for taking that time, but to recognize how important it is to allow yourself to be able to function properly and to stay in flow.
absolutely. Cool.
A lot to think about there, I think, with that one. Hopefully, we've given listeners loads to think about and to put into practice as well. If you don't already do it, do make sure that you create space for yourself, especially when you're struggling with something.
Yeah.
So,
And there are 51 other episodes that you can go and learn from as well if you haven't caught up with them.
yes, absolutely. I'm sure there's lots that you can learn and help yourself with by listening to our other podcasts. So this is the last one of a year's worth, and next time we will be starting year two of our podcast. How exciting!
I know. Excellent.
So, Jeremy, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for an interesting discussion as always, and looking forward to catching up with you again soon.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
So it's goodbye from me.
And again, it's goodbye from him.